When life becomes uncertain, when challenges seem overwhelming, and when the path ahead is unclear, the greatest decision you can make is to trust God in every detail of your life. Trust is not just about believing in His power. It is about surrendering completely, knowing that He is in control even when things don't make sense. God has never failed, and He never will. The same God who created the heavens and the earth, who holds the stars in place, and who designed every intricate detail of creation, also cares deeply about every detail of your life. No situation is too small for His attention, and no challenge is too great for His power. If you place your full confidence in Him, you will find peace in the midst of uncertainty, strength in the face of trials, and direction when the road ahead is unclear. God sees what you cannot see and knows what you do not know, because He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the one who holds all things together and orchestrates every moment according to His divine plan, because He is not limited by time, space, or human understanding. He sees the past, the present, and the future all at once. And He knows exactly what needs to happen in your life to fulfill His perfect will, because there are moments when life feels uncertain, when decisions seem overwhelming, when the future appears clouded by doubt and fear, but God already knows what is ahead. He knows the opportunities that will come, the challenges you will face, and the lessons you need to learn along the way. Because you may not understand why things happen the way they do, but that is where trust comes in. Trusting God is not about having all the answers. It is about believing that He does. It is about knowing that He is guiding you even when you cannot see the full picture, because when you walk by faith and not by sight, you begin to rest in the assurance that God is always leading you toward His best for your life. He is aligning circumstances, positioning people, and directing your steps even when it seems like nothing is happening, because He knows what doors need to be opened and which ones need to remain shut. He knows what relationships will help you grow and which ones will hinder your progress. He knows what challenges will strengthen your faith and what blessings will come at the right time, because God's knowledge is infinite, His wisdom is perfect, and His love for you is unchanging. So even when life takes unexpected turns, even when prayers seem unanswered, even when situations don't make sense, you can trust that God is still in control, because He has not forgotten you. He has not abandoned you. He is not confused about what you are facing. He is fully aware of every detail, and He is working all things together for your good, because trusting in God means resting in the truth that His ways are higher than your ways. His thoughts are higher than your thoughts, and His plan is greater than anything you could ever imagine. Because if you could see what God sees, you would never doubt Him again. If you could understand the way He is orchestrating every detail of your life, you would never question His timing or His purpose. Because God is not just watching your life unfold. He is actively involved in shaping your path, molding your character, and preparing you for what is ahead, because there will be times when you feel lost, when you struggle to see the way forward, when you question why certain things happen. But those are the moments when trust becomes essential, because trust is not based on what you see. It is based on who God is. It is built on the foundation of His faithfulness, His promises, and His unwavering commitment to His children, because He has proven time and time again that He is faithful. He has never failed, and He never will. He has guided His people through the wilderness, through the storms, through the battles, and He will do the same for you, because even when you don't see it, He is working. Even when you don't understand it, He has a purpose. Even when things seem out of control, He remains sovereign, because Your responsibility is not to figure everything out. It is to trust that God already has. It is to lean not on your own understanding, but to acknowledge Him in all your ways, and He will direct your path. Because when you surrender to His wisdom, when you trust His knowledge above your own, when you rest in the truth that He sees what you cannot, you will find peace, even in the uncertainty. You will find strength, even in the waiting. You will find confidence knowing that your life is in the hands of a God who knows all things, sees all things, and controls all things. Because trusting Him in every detail of your life means believing that He is guiding you even when the road is unclear. Knowing that He is leading you even when you feel lost, and resting in the truth that He is working all things together for your good. Surrendering control to God brings true peace and security because it allows you to release the burdens and anxieties that weigh heavily on your heart and mind, because life is filled with uncertainties. And the more we try to grasp for control, the more we find ourselves overwhelmed by the pressures of life, by the expectations we place on ourselves, and by the circumstances that are often beyond our understanding or influence, because we live in a world that values self-sufficiency and independence, where the mantra is often, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or you have to take charge of your own destiny. But in the kingdom of God, the principle is quite the opposite, because true strength is found in weakness. True freedom is found in surrender, and true peace comes from letting go of the illusion that we can control every outcome, because when you surrender control to God, you are acknowledging His sovereignty, His wisdom, and His love for you, because it is an act of faith that says, God, I trust you more than I trust my own ability to navigate this life. It is recognizing that His plans for you are far greater than your own, that His ways are higher than your ways, and that His thoughts are higher than your thoughts. Because surrendering control doesn't mean you are passive or indifferent. Rather, it means you are actively choosing to place your trust in the one who knows you intimately, who knows the plans He has for you, and who has promised to work all things together for your good. Because when you let go of the need to control every situation, you open yourself up to experience the peace that surpasses all understanding, because peace comes from knowing that you are not alone in your struggles, that God is with you in every challenge, every trial, and every uncertainty, because His presence is a source of comfort and strength that can carry you through the most difficult times. When you trust in His guidance and surrender your worries to Him, you can approach each day with a sense of calm and assurance, because you know that your life is in His hands and that He is actively working on your behalf. Because it is a choice to believe that God is good, that He cares for you, and that He desires what is best for you, even when circumstances seem to suggest otherwise. Because when you hold on tightly to control, you may find yourself living in fear, anxiety, and doubt. But when you release that control, you allow God's peace to wash over you, to fill the empty spaces in your heart, and to settle your restless spirit, because it is in surrender that you discover the truth of Philippians 4:6-7, which says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Because that promise is a powerful reminder that when we bring our concerns to God, He responds with peace that we cannot manufacture on our own, because surrendering control is a process. It requires humility and vulnerability. It requires us to let go of the desire to manipulate outcomes, to manage every detail, and to orchestrate our own lives according to our own plans, because we must come to the realization that God is ultimately in control and that His timing is perfect. Because sometimes we struggle to surrender because we are afraid of what that means for our future, afraid that we will lose what we desire, afraid that we will be left with nothing. But God assures us that when we surrender to Him, we gain everything we truly need, because we gain a relationship with Him, we gain the assurance of His love and presence, and we gain the ability to live in freedom rather than fear, because as we surrender, we also discover the security that comes from resting in God's promises, because He has promised never to leave us or forsake us. He has promised to provide for our needs, and He has promised to give us peace in the midst of chaos, because this security allows us to navigate the uncertainties of life with a sense of confidence, knowing that we can trust God's character, His faithfulness, and His goodness. Because every time you surrender control, you are making a declaration that you believe in God's ability to handle every detail of your life, that you believe in His desire to bless you, and that you trust in His timing and plan, because it is this act of surrender that leads to true peace and security, the kind that the world cannot give, the kind that allows you to stand firm in the face of adversity, to face each day with hope, and to move forward in faith, knowing that God is in control and that He is working everything together for your good and His glory that is far different from our own. He exists outside of time, and His perspective encompasses eternity. So while we may feel the urgency of our circumstances, God sees the bigger picture, and He knows what is necessary for our spiritual growth and well-being, because every delay we experience is not a sign of God's indifference. Rather, it is an invitation to trust Him more deeply, to strengthen our faith, and to develop a greater reliance on His wisdom, because God's delays often serve a divine purpose, preparing us for the blessings that He has in store for us, because He knows that there are things we must learn during the waiting period, character traits that need to be cultivated, and experiences that will equip us for what is to come, because these delays can refine us, mold us, and draw us closer to Him, enabling us to fully and embrace the blessings when they finally arrive. Because think about the story of Abraham, who waited many years for the fulfillment of God's promise of a son, despite being advanced in age and facing seemingly fulfilled, but only after a prolonged period of waiting. And it was during that time of waiting that Abraham's faith was tested and strengthened, because similarly, consider the Israelites who were delivered from slavery in Egypt, yet found themselves wandering in the desert for 40 years, a delay that seemed to stretch endlessly. Yet God had a purpose in their wandering, teaching them to rely on Him, to trust in His provision, and to learn His ways. These delays were not denials. They were preparation for a promised land that would require faith, obedience, and dependence on God, because it is essential to remember that God's timing is perfect and often involves delays that serve a greater purpose, because He is not constrained by our expectations or timelines, and His plans may take longer to unfold than we anticipate, but they are always worth the wait, because in moments of delay, we can choose to lean into God's presence, to seek His guidance, and to deepen our relationship with Him. Instead of growing anxious or frustrated, we can use this time to draw nearer to God, to immerse ourselves in prayer, to study His Word, and to trust that He is actively working behind the scenes on our behalf. because it is in these moments that our faith can grow, that we can learn to trust God more fully, and that we can experience the peace that comes from knowing that He is in control, because every delay brings the opportunity for us to reflect on our desires and to evaluate whether they align with God's will for our lives. Sometimes what we think we want may not be what we truly need. And during these periods of waiting, God can reshape our hearts, clarify our priorities, and lead us to a deeper understanding of His purpose. Because when God finally reveals His plan, we will see how intricately He has woven our lives together, how every delay has contributed to our growth, and how every moment of waiting was preparing us for the next step in our journey. God's delays are not meant to discourage us. They are meant to encourage us to remain steadfast in our faith, because they remind us that we serve a God who is sovereign, who knows what is best for us, and who is always working for our good, because when we view delays through the lens of faith, we can shift our perspective from disappointment to anticipation, from frustration to hope, and from doubt to trust, because God is not simply delaying for the sake of delay. He's orchestrating every detail according to His perfect plan, and in His perfect timing, everything will come together as it should, because He has a purpose for every waiting period. And in that purpose lies the promise of what is to come, because as we navigate the uncertainties of life, let us hold on to the truth that God's delays are not His denials, but rather stepping stones toward the fulfillment of His divine will for our lives. Because when we trust in His perfect plan, we can find peace in the waiting, hope in the uncertainty, and assurance that God is working all things together for our good, shaping us, refining us, and preparing us for the incredible journey ahead. Faith grows when you trust God even in the smallest details of your life, because it is often in these seemingly insignificant moments that we learn to rely on God's guidance, grace, and provision, because many people tend to compartmentalize their faith, believing that it's only necessary for the big decisions, the monumental events, or the life-altering circumstances that demand our attention and prayer. But in reality, our faith is meant to permeate every aspect of our lives, influencing how we approach everything, from our daily routines to our interactions with others, because when we invite God into the small details, we create an opportunity for Him to demonstrate His faithfulness and provision in ways that we may never have anticipated. Because think about the simple act of waking up each day. As we rise to face the morning, we can choose to start our day with a prayer, acknowledging God's presence, seeking His wisdom, and asking for His guidance in all that we do. Because when we invite God into our daily routines, we are expressing our trust in Him, allowing Him to direct our paths and make our plans successful. This act of surrender in the morning sets the tone for the rest of the day, reminding us that we are not alone and that God is invested in every detail of our lives. Because when we face challenges at work, school, or in our relationships, we can choose to trust God for wisdom in handling difficult situations. In seeking His help, we recognize that He cares about our struggles and wants to equip us with the insight we need to navigate them effectively, because it is in these moments of reliance on Him that our faith deepens, our confidence in His presence grows, and we begin to experience the peace that comes from knowing that God is actively involved in our lives. This principle is especially significant when we encounter decisions, both big and small, for it is easy to feel overwhelmed by the weight of choices we have to make. Yet, when we approach these decisions with a heart of trust, inviting God to lead us, we open ourselves to His guidance, allowing Him to work in and through us to reveal His perfect plan. because faith often involves stepping out of our comfort zones, taking risks, and trusting that God will provide the necessary resources and strength to follow through. This can manifest in everyday choices like how we spend our time, how we treat those around us, or how we respond to challenges, because when we make decisions that reflect our trust in God, we demonstrate that we believe He has our best interests at heart. And as we act on that faith, we build a stronger foundation for our spiritual journey. Because trusting God in the details also allows us to cultivate a heart of gratitude, recognizing that every blessing, no matter how small, is a gift from Him, because as we acknowledge the little things, a kind word from a friend, a beautiful sunrise, or a moment of peace, we begin to see how God is working in our lives, and we become more attuned to His presence, fostering a deeper appreciation for His goodness and faithfulness. This gratitude leads us to trust Him even more, because it reminds us that He cares for us in ways we may not always recognize, and it encourages us to bring every aspect of our lives before Him in prayer, sharing our hopes, dreams, concerns, and even the mundane details, because as we lay our lives before God, we invite Him into the smallest moments, allowing Him to work in ways that we may never fully comprehend, because every time we trust God with the little things, we are building a habit of faith that grows over time, making it easier to rely on Him in larger, more significant circumstances, because this process of building faith is not always linear. There may be times when we struggle to trust God, feeling uncertain about the future or overwhelmed by our circumstances, but even in those moments, we can choose to lean into our faith, reminding ourselves of God's past faithfulness, His promises, and His love for us. Because faith is a journey, and as we continue to invite God into our lives, we will find that our trust in Him deepens, and we become more resilient in the face of adversity, ultimately leading us to experience the fullness of life that comes from knowing Him intimately, because as we grow in our trust, we also learn to share that faith with others, encouraging those around us to also seek God in every detail of their lives. Because when we share our testimonies of God's faithfulness in the small things, we inspire others to embark on their own journeys of faith, creating a ripple effect that can impact communities, families, and friendships for generations to come, because in the end, it is the small details that shape our lives, that cultivate our character, and that teach us to lean on God in ways that transform us from the inside out. Because faith is not just a belief, it is a way of life, a continuous act of trust that acknowledges God's sovereignty, His love, and His desire to guide us through every detail of our lives. Growing in faith is a lifelong journey that begins with trusting God in the small things. And as we do so, we find that our faith becomes a powerful force that enables us to live boldly, love deeply, and serve faithfully in all that we do. Every struggle you face is an opportunity to rely on God's wisdom and strength, because life is filled with challenges and obstacles that can often leave us feeling overwhelmed and helpless, because when we encounter difficulties, our initial instinct may be to rely on our own understanding, strength, or resources. But as we grow in our faith, we begin to realize that true strength lies in turning to God, seeking His guidance, and depending on His infinite wisdom. Because these struggles are not simply roadblocks. They are divine opportunities for growth, transformation, and a deeper relationship with our Creator, because every challenge presents a chance for us to lean into God's presence, to cry out to Him in our times of need, and to discover his faithfulness in ways that we may not have recognized before. Because think about the story of Joseph, who faced numerous struggles throughout his life, from being betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery to being wrongfully imprisoned. Yet through every trial, he relied on God's wisdom, ultimately leading him to a position of power where he could save countless lives during a famine, because Joseph's journey teaches us that even in the darkest moments, we can trust that God is at work, orchestrating our lives according to his perfect plan. And it is in those moments of struggle that we are often refined and shaped into the people God desires us to be. Because when we encounter difficulties, we have the choice to either succumb to despair or to turn to God. And choosing to rely on his strength allows us to face our struggles with courage and resilience. Because as we acknowledge our limitations, we open ourselves up to the possibility of experiencing God's limitless power. Because in our weakness, he is strong, and when we admit that we cannot do it alone, we create space for God to work miracles in our lives. Because each struggle we face offers us a unique opportunity to learn more about God's character and his faithfulness. Because when we encounter hardships, we are reminded of our dependence on him, and we can find comfort in knowing that he understands our pain and is with us every step of the way. Because when we take the time to pray, trusting God in every detail means believing that he is working all things for your good. Because as we journey through life, we often encounter circumstances that challenge our understanding and test our faith, moments that seem chaotic or beyond our control. And in these times, it can be difficult to see how everything fits into God's perfect plan, because we may grapple with doubts, wondering why certain events unfold the way they do and how they contribute to our ultimate well-being. Yet the essence of trusting God lies in our ability to relinquish control and surrender our worries, believing that he is orchestrating every detail of our lives for our benefit, because Scripture assures us in Romans 8:28 that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose, reminding us that God's plans are far greater than our own, and that his perspective encompasses all aspects of our existence, including the joys, struggles, and even the heartaches we encounter along the way. Because trusting God in every detail invites us to adopt a posture of faith that acknowledges his sovereignty and goodness, regardless of our current circumstances, because it requires us to view our lives through the lens of his promises, knowing that he is faithful and true to his word, even when our understanding is limited, because God is not bound by time or space. He sees the beginning from the end and knows how each chapter of our lives contributes to the unfolding of his greater narrative. And this divine perspective enables us to find peace in the midst of uncertainty, as we learn to embrace the idea that God is at work, even when we cannot perceive it, because often we may feel overwhelmed by the challenges we face. And it can be easy to lose sight of God's presence during difficult times, yet it is precisely in these moments that we are called to trust him more deeply, to lean into his promises, and to believe that he is weaving our experiences into a tapestry of grace and purpose, because the process of trusting God in every detail also involves an active engagement with his word, seeking his guidance and spending time in prayer to cultivate a relationship that deepens our understanding of his character and his faithfulness. Because as we immerse ourselves in Scripture, we discover countless examples of individuals who face trials and uncertainties, but ultimately witness God's faithfulness at work, and their stories inspire us to trust him more fully, reminding us that we are not alone in our struggles. Because think of Joseph, who endured betrayal, imprisonment, and hardship before God elevated him to a position of power to save many lives during a famine, Joseph's journey was marked by adversity, yet he remained steadfast in his faith, believing that God had a purpose in every trial he faced, and his eventual reconciliation with his brothers serves as a powerful testament to God's ability to work all things for good, because trusting God in every detail also invites us to acknowledge that his timing is not always our own, because we may pray fervently for answers or resolutions, and yet we may find ourselves in seasons of waiting, feeling as though our needs are unmet or our prayers go unanswered. Yet it is in these moments that we are challenged to deepen our faith, to lean into the truth that God's delays are not denials, but rather opportunities for growth and refinement as we learn to rely on his strength and wisdom rather than our own, because every detail of our lives matters to God. And he is intimately involved in every aspect of our journey, from the smallest choices to the most significant decisions. And when we trust him, we open ourselves to the possibility of his divine intervention and provision, because it requires us to let go of our need for control and to embrace the peace that comes from knowing that he is working behind the scenes for our good, because trusting God also invites us to see challenges as opportunities for growth, as moments that shape us into the individuals he created us to be. And when we approach life with this perspective, we can find purpose in our struggles, knowing that they are refining us and preparing us for what is yet to come. Because as we learn to trust God in every detail, we begin to experience a profound sense of peace that transcends our circumstances, allowing us to rest in the assurance that he is in control and that he is working all things together for our ultimate good and his glory. Because the more we trust him, the more we recognize his hand at work in our lives. And this recognition fuels our faith, enabling us to face each day with hope and confidence, because trusting God is not a one-time decision. It is a continuous journey that invites us to cultivate a lifestyle of faith, surrender, and dependence on him. Because as we trust him in the details, we begin to witness the beauty of his provision, the power of his promises, and the depth of his love for us, because ultimately, trusting God in every detail is an act of worship, an acknowledgement of his sovereignty, and a declaration of our faith that he is indeed working all things for our good, even when the path ahead seems uncertain or fraught with challenges. We can find solace in knowing that our lives are held in his capable hands, and we can trust him wholeheartedly to lead us according to his perfect will. In conclusion, trusting God in every detail of your life is a profound journey that transforms not only how we perceive our circumstances, but also how we experience God's presence and faithfulness. It challenges us to surrender our need for control and to embrace the divine orchestration of our lives, recognizing that God is intimately involved in every aspect of our existence. As we lean into his promises, we find comfort in knowing that he is working all things for our good, even when we cannot see the full picture. Every struggle, every waiting period, and every moment of uncertainty is an opportunity for us to grow in faith and reliance on him. By cultivating a deeper relationship with God through prayer and his word, we equip ourselves to face life's challenges with confidence and peace. Trusting God invites us to view our trials as stepping stones toward greater strength and purpose, reinforcing the belief that his timing is always perfect. Let us remember that trusting God is not merely a passive act. It is an active decision to believe in his goodness and sovereignty. As we commit to trusting him in the details, we will witness his faithful provision and guidance in ways that exceed our expectations. Ultimately, trusting God empowers us to navigate life's complexities with hope and assurance, knowing that we are held securely in His loving hand. Therefore, let us continue to trust God wholeheartedly, believing that He is indeed working in every detail of our lives for our ultimate good and His glory.